You guys ready?
Yep.
Not ready?
Not ready, they don't have to get ready.
Okay. It is December 8th, 2025. It is 4:01 p.m. This is the Beautification and Public Art Commission meeting. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it to order and do roll call. So Commissioner Cruz,
Present.
Commissioner Travelby, Commissioner Rulon. Oh, sorry, Vice Chair Rulon.
I'm here now.
Thank you. My apologies. I was running through the list. Commissioner Edelman Heath.
She is absent today.
Okay, she's absent, not just online.
Yep, she's excused.
Okay. Commissioner Curley,
I'm here.
Commissioner McGrath,
Present.
and myself, Chair McCord. I am here. So item D, upcoming events. Please look at flagstaff365.com for upcoming events in music, culture, art, and science. And item 2 in upcoming events, there's a celebration event for Russell by Beth Nybeck and the historic Dunbar School plaque by Maria Jones. It's at the Cleo Murdoch Park and the Murdoch Center on December 18th at 11 a.m. Item E, do we have any public participation today?
No public comments were submitted.
Thank you. And then item F, approval of the November minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read and review those, and would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Anyone second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, the motion passes. And then item G, announcements. We've got a staff announcement from Corey about the public art map.
Yes, we have the new public art map printed out. It's in a self-guided tour sort of format, so it's based, organized around where the artworks are located rather than their particular medium. And each one of them has a brief little narrative blurb that talks a little bit about the artwork, what it means, who made it. And it's in a handy brochure format, no more folding out the map. So yeah, very excited. We're going to be printing these annually now, updating and improving them.
Nice. Is there a website? Is there a website that coincides with
Yes.
this? Okay,
Yes,
nice.
and that'll be updated, I believe, quarterly.
Very cool.
In the meantime.
I look forward to using these with the student tours that I do. I think these would be great. Can we get extras and
Have some music, like, yeah.
fantastic. And item 2, there's a staff
Oh,
announcement.
hold on 2 seconds. I have a question. Will the art maps also be available at the visitor center downtown?
Yes, they'll be at the visitor center. They're at the library. Discover Flag is getting some. They're being distributed to numerous venues.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then item 2, staff announcement, also from Corey Woodall.
Yes.
The BIA grant contingency updates. You want to take that one?
Yeah, so there were 2 BIA grants that you contingently approved of. The first was Paul Pujued's Monsoon Wisdom mural, and there were concerns about the appropriateness of the relationship of Indigenous imagery. And so we sent an email out to our Indigenous Affairs Administrator and shared the imagery with her and gave some background about the artist's application. And she found no problem with the depiction of the heron's corn and rain systems presented in that mural. So attached to your agendas, you have that email exchange if you want to see her specific input, but that didn't seem to be an issue. So we've moved forward with that. And the other one was Sarah LaRosa's Little Free Art Boxes. And she resubmitted her application with a budget that more clearly defined that no more than $3,500 was being used towards labor or artist fee, and all the other expenses were material, and she did break those out for us. And then all her art boxes will be outside of businesses when they're operating, so no one will need to go into a business to make use of one.
Fantastic. Thank you for following up on that. Really appreciate it. So, all right. And then item H, discussion items. We have Vice Mayor Sweet's monthly report.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Sorry I'm not there in person. I don't think I've ever done a BPAC meeting virtual, so it's kind of weird. Sorry about that. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. My first update is on the Habitat Starter Home Program, which is over in Timber Sky. I've had a lot of people asking how that's coming along, and we are pushing to try and get folks moved in for the holidays. So nothing's ever for certain, but we're working hard to ensure that that can happen. Pretty exciting. It's 40 homes out there. The program's pretty amazing. And if you want more information and details, I can let you know. I'm sure you saw, but I wanted to just kind of update that the mayor and I went to New York City to watch the NAU marching band in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And it was certainly an honor to be there. They not only cut the ribbon for the parade, but were the first act right behind Tom the Turkey to kick it off. So very proud. I'm an alumni. I'm sure some of you in the room are as well. And it was just a very great moment to see NAU featured. What I'm hearing is that we were the first marching band from an Arizona university to play in the parade. So very exciting. Tomorrow there is the lantern opening. It's over on Lucky Lane, and it's over 100 transitional homes. Ross from Shelter Services is hosting the event, and I'm glad that that is finally through the finish line, and we're cutting that ribbon. And then last but not least, at the last meeting, council voted to partner with the Arizona Parks Department, and we're going to be doing interpretive signage on McMillan Mesa. And I think that'll be a nice addition. We did have a council member ask if there was going to be Braille on the signs available. We're waiting to hear on the answer with that, but I think having these signs up there will be great for the community and visitors alike. So that is all I have. I have to leave this meeting early today. I'm sorry. I am like triple booked all day long. It's been exhausting. And if I don't talk to you, happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Miranda. Happy holidays. So moving on to, well, did anybody have anything they wanted to discuss from Miranda's update? Questions, concerns? Okay. Moving on to item 2, questions regarding artificial intelligence. All right. Where do you go?
Lisa, do we have a clicker? Oh, yes.
Why do I question?
Question is, will it cooperate?
Okay, so today we're just going to open a conversation about the use of artificial intelligence in art, and specifically how it relates to visual arts and our program here at Beautification Arts and Sciences. So just to start things off for fun, this is a cartoon from 1923, which shows an illustrator making fishing plans because his work is now performed by an electronically automated cartoon dynamo, also paired with an idea dynamo in the year 2023. So this presentation is just going to be an overview to help guide conversations later on. But if you want to jump in at any point and make comments or ask questions, please feel free to do so. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have some questions on the screen to help you think about how to have this conversation. So the presentation is going to consist of just going over how AI is used in visual arts right now. We'll talk about the AI controversy, what legal problems exist, and what a sampling bias is, and then follow that up with an implicit bias activity. And there on the screen is an artwork and quote from So-Gwon Chung, a Chinese-Canadian artist and researcher who often employs robotics and AI in her artwork. And she says, there is meaning in the data, but it's not the meaning we are given, it's the meaning we make. So how is AI being used in visual art? AI programs are trained on massive data sets containing billions of images culled from the internet. Developers use this data to train AI programs how to associate words with visual features and styles. The images on which the AI is trained is called source imagery. When a user prompts an AI program to create an image in the style of Claude Monet, for example, it doesn't pull from a predefined Monet database. Instead, it mimics the style based on the patterns AI has inferred during its training. This can include anything that fits under the umbrella of what characterizes Monet's style, such as dappled light, visible brushstrokes, and pastel tones. At the same time, AI is pulling subject imagery, in this example of skateboarders, and modifying it to utilize the same visual language you might find in a Monet painting. So once you have your first image generated, there's unlimited ways that you can modify it. If you don't like the image that it's giving you, you can simply ask, make me another one, or you can change specific elements of the image by instructing the program what you'd like to see altered through your text input. So here I asked the AI to make the image cooler, so a very subjective sort of request, and then more concrete additions of alligator and having the alligator be the skateboarder. AI models are trained on billions of images, as I already said. Many of these images are protected by copyright. When the AI systems generate new images, they sometimes produce content that bears striking similarities to the images that were used to train the AI. If an AI-generated image is found to replicate all or a substantial portion of a copyrighted work, it may be found to be infringing upon copyright law. There's no clear way to determine how much similarity is enough to be illegal. This can only be interpreted on a case-by-case basis in court. Similarly, although not a common concern for public art, if AI-generated images resemble a real person, especially a celebrity, publication of this image might violate their right of publicity, their right to control commercial uses of their likeness. In addition, many AI images and image generation programs have terms of service that place significant restrictions on how their outputs can be used. Some prohibit commercial applications or require attribution. So a user may be in violation of their software license by selling their AI-generated images. An artwork made with the assistance of AI can be copyrighted if their creator, An image can be copyrighted by their creator if they are authored by a human that provides significant, meaningful, creative input. This could be using an AI image as inspiration to sketch from, manually editing the image to repurpose the AI image into something distinct, or arranging AI images in a way to provide unique commentary. Again, the definition of what constitutes a significant creative input or creative transformation is nebulous at this time and can only be determined in court. With current popular and publicly accessible AI generative programs, there is no way to trace what images were used in the creation of a given image. Thus, it is nearly impossible to simply pull from a body of copyright-free images or to credit original content makers without creating a customized database and training an AI program on one's own, which is a big undertaking and not something the average person would find approachable. As AI continues to advance, however, we may see this changing. Over this slide, I didn't push the button in time, sorry guys. But we'll move on now to the AI art controversy. Legality aside, everyone is probably familiar with the AI art controversy, and that boils down to, is AI art actually art? And if so, should AI art be treated in the same way as other art forms? There are some that feel AI art is a way of cheating by not doing any manual work yourself and simply describing to the AI program what you'd like to see. This can be useful, for example, for a non-artist who needs graphic design assistance for their small business, or to design a quick family vacation t-shirt. Some artists in the fine art world have started using AI as part of their art practices with customized databases and using their own unique technology to generate works of art. In 2018, Christie's became the first auction house to offer an artwork created by an artificial intelligence algorithm, which sold for over $400,000. The work by artist team Obvious fed an AI system with a data set of 15,000 portraits between the 14th century to the 20th century to create a series of fictional portraits. One of them is shown here. I also included a quote from one member of the artist team who shares his opinions on the issue of who is truly the artist in this project, saying, if the artist is the one that creates the image, then that would be the machine. If the artist is one that holds the vision and wants to share the message, then that would be us. In late 2022, Refik Anandal received mixed reactions to the installation of his work entitled Unsupervised from a series called Machine Hallucinations. He too used a custom database of over 130,000 records pulled from the public archive of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Can we play this video, Annalisa?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So just to give you an idea of what this artwork looked like in the museum. And then I've also included a quote from art critic Jerry Saltz.
Where's the link to the video? Sorry to interrupt.
It was embedded in the PowerPoint. And I sent you an email last week that had the URL. If it doesn't play,
It's not this?
no, it's not that. Sorry. If it's not embedded, I mean, I can send it out later.
It's okay, this will only take just 1 minute, if that's okay with everyone.
Great.
Seem to be moving along in the agenda.
If there's a sound element, it's not important.
Good to know.
Thank you. And so as you can see from Mr. Salt's commentary, he found this work to be derivative, familiar, and struggles to transcend its source material. So it's a very controversial dive, bringing AR into a museum. Okay, and then The last example I have here just came up in the news this last week from Bozeman, Montana. They were holding a low stakes art competition to create a holiday poster for the town. And this AI controversy made headlines. The winner of a $200 prize for the design shown here was accused of using AI in their work by the public, something the artist has repeatedly denied. It highlights a major problem with the consideration of AI, that it is very difficult for an observer to say with 100% certainty if an image is made with AI or not. There are numerous guides and signs that signal the possible use of AI in an image, but only the artist is able to furnish evidence that any digitally presented work of art was made by themselves alone and without the aid of AI. Downtown Bozeman acknowledged that it has no parameters around AI in their current contest guidelines and plans to establish standards for navigating AI submissions going forward, including requiring artists to provide working files. Sampling bias in AI occurs when the data used to train an AI model, that source imagery, is not representative of reality, leading to unfair, inaccurate, or discriminatory outcomes. Images used in training AI stem from internet uploads, which commonly include images intended for sharing or promotion, advertisements, models, and social media highlights, which reflect cultures and people that are most present online and in media. Less common are mundane, unexalted subjects on which the AI can train itself. AI programs may also inadvertently exhibit the biases of their designers, the human-taught associations of words and phrases, and the confirmation biases of human users selecting certain imagery to reflect certain prompts. Researchers at Princeton University used AI software to link over 2 million words, finding that European names were viewed as more pleasant than African-American names, and that the words woman and girl were more likely to be associated with the arts instead of science and math, which were most likely to be connected to males. AI has the potential to further push these stereotypes. Okay, so now we have just a little fun exercise. These are images that I generated using Google Gemini. And I asked Google Gemini to give me an image of a woman who is successful, beautiful, ugly, smart, or dumb. No other context is given to the AI other than those descriptors. So just take a moment to match what image goes with which prompt and think about why you make that association. Think about if you see anything problematic with those associations and what kind of source imagery do you think the AI was likely pulling from. Consider both the subject herself as well as the style in which each woman is presented. You can come back to this if you'd like, but we're kind of at the end of the presentation. Just for fun, I asked the AI to generate a woman who is all 5 of those descriptors. And you can see how many red flags are coming up there as well. And so now we have discussion, and we can go back to any slide you'd like.
How would you guys like to approach this conversation? Because I think there's a couple different opportunities. I would start honestly with the last question and bullets. And I think considering our current training and our current knowledge set around AI and the research that each of us have done individually, whether or not it's in a place yet, or we're ready to have a longer discussion about what legal problems we should be concerned about, or, you know, what the benefits and disadvantages are. I mean, those are things that people are working on around the world right now, and there's pretty robust academic discussion around it. So my first question are we ready to have, as a group, on a recording in a public meeting, a long conversation about AI policy? Or are we, or do we need some time to consider some of these questions?
I feel like it's sort of a city bureaucracy thing because we are not, I'm sure, the only group that receives and evaluates proposals and issues RFPs, right? So it would seem to me like the city as an organization needs to create some sort of language, and then, people can modify it or tailor it based on the type of work that they do. But I think we would be spending a lot of time going down all kinds of rabbit holes, talking about art and whether it's subjective and how we try and make objective some of that subjectivity. I just don't think it's a good use of time because I feel like as an organization, the organization should come up with some sort of language, which I think is important. I do think it's important that we have these conversations, but I don't think that we're the group that should decide that because we're not the ones, as commissioners, we're not the ones that are going to be sued or get in trouble or anything like that. It's going to be the city, right? And so it seems to me like Kevin Finsel and his team should come up with some sort of language based on language that other government entities have and state entities. And it just seems like the conversation is bigger than we are. But I do think it's an important conversation. And I actually liked the video of the AI generated art. I think art is so creative that there's space for AI. I feel like AI is not 100%, but I think it does some great things. And I think to be afraid of it just reminds me of the early days when we were afraid of the internet
Or
and
spell
afraid
check.
of Alexa and afraid of our phones listening to us. I mean, it just sort of, makes me cringe when we think about how useless and what the Y2K scare, who remembers that? All that energy wasted on something, on the what if, right? So that's my take on this conversation. I feel like, yes, something should be decided, but I don't think that we're the right group because I just don't think that we have the authority.
I'm pretty aligned with Michael on this. I feel like there's a lot of really interesting conversation that would be fun to have over coffee. And for me, none of it is conversation that I want somebody to bring back to me in 5 years about my personal policy on AI, because it is not informed. And I think of the ways that I use it currently, and it is very quickly becoming a really useful tool in my life. And I use it for a lot of interesting stuff. But I also think that there are large arts organizations that are having these conversations. I think there are large government organizations that are having these conversations. And like you're saying, think back to the Y2K stuff, and actually, I don't know if anybody remembers the controversy over spell check in higher ed. But there was a whole debate about whether or not that should be allowable at the higher education level. And then you could get into some really complicated questions. Like think about Kara Walker's current exhibit at the Monuments exhibit in LA right now, where she reassembled an existing artwork into something else, which has a lot of parallels to how you might use AI, but nobody is questioning whether or not her work is. And so there's just a lot of very complicated questions. And so I don't really feel like I'm in a space where I could have policy conversations about.
Would you want disclosure from applicants? Disclosure from applicants if they have or have not used AI?
I think it depends upon where the policy goes. It's because I mean, if they used it to rewrite the grammar in their proposal, I don't know that I really care about that. But it really, there's such a wide spectrum of AI use. And I don't know right now where I draw the line in qualifying and disqualifying use of AI.
We do have a comment from Vice Mayor Sweet.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Sweet, you have a comment?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Or you're on mute.
My microphone is on. Still can't hear me?
Oh, you know what? Just a sec, Vice Mayor. We gotta fix our end over here. While we're waiting, Audra, did you have any thoughts? You have expressions.
That was scary.
There's AI responding to you.
I agree with you that I don't feel informed enough to try to make a policy decision. I do think it's worth noting though that I communicate a lot with artists in my nonprofit work, and I think it's worth sharing that they're very concerned about AI. A lot of them feel like they have taken years to hone their craft, and they're seeing kind of, AI generating and using these different artistic techniques that they have taken sometimes decades to master, and they feel like that's really unfair. And I've also heard it compared to other forms of cultural appropriation as well.
Yeah.
Feeling like it's, it feels like that sort of appropriation.
How would they feel about 3D printing? I mean, because that's a question, like if you're a sculptor and then somebody's using 3D printing, that's another form of technology to produce artworks that maybe somebody who is a wood carver would have no real issue with. And if there's a competition and you've got a wood carver versus a 3D printed piece, which one holds more value? But that's where I think that we get into some real ethical.
I will also say that in the experiences that I've had where we have these artist markets and we invite artists to come and display and sell their work, there does seem to be a general still valuing of, for example, a traditional wood carver versus like somebody using a glow forge to, use a computerized burner tool to create that work as well. So yeah, like you said, I don't really feel qualified, but I do feel like it's important to share what I've heard from artists. And I think in any kind of conversation like this, the voice of the artist should be in the conversation.
Yeah,
Somehow.
Yeah, I feel like going back to my background in sustainable development, this is something that really requires a stakeholder dialogue. And I do think at some point a policy is needed, but we would need a higher level policy to guide our own policy. But I do think that if we're not transparent about where we stand on AI, at some point, I think we are going to alienate a lot of artists. If you look at the artist gallery at the mall, they very, very proudly display that they are AI free. And I think
that conversation, and I can't speak to submissions Corey has received yet, but, or thus far, but I think that conversation is going to be coming very, very soon, because we have received applications where potentially AI has been utilized, or I have had artists approach me and ask me to look at their portfolios, which are clearly all AI, based on knowing what historically their work has looked like. So I'm just thinking with like beautification action grants, or I'm thinking with our traffic signal cabinet wraps. I think it's coming.
for sure.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm not saying that the conversation isn't pertinent. For sure, I think the conversation is really pertinent. I just don't know that we have the legal or the educated standing to have a full policy discussion.
I also think, AI is a tool, right? And so I use AI every single day where I'll write, that's okay. I'll write a long email and I'll put it in chat and I'll say, make this more cohesive and more succinct, right? Or if I'm emailing my students, I tend to be very direct in the way that I communicate, and it's off-putting to a lot of people, but certainly to 20-year-olds. And so I'll say, can you make this friendlier or warmer, right? And it'll edit it. So I could see AI being really useful for artists if they say, you know, this is the grant application and this is what I've written. Can you make sure my writing is aligned with the RFP, right? The other thing, I mean, to Audra's point, I find it so fascinating when we sort of evaluate effort, right? Because as a faculty member, you get papers where a student says, well, I worked really hard on this, but if it's a D paper, it's a D paper, right? And so thinking about, you know, an artist that has taken years to hone their craft, that's great. But somebody else might be really good at something and not need to spend that many years doing something, right? I think about math and my husband who can calculate a mortgage rate and a monthly payment in his head in 2 seconds, where I would never, a realtor didn't when she was at our house. So some people have the gift of just being better at something quicker, sports, right? Math, art, whatever it is. And so I think it's just a very slippery slope once we say, well, you know, it took her 5 years to learn how to paint like that, and it took this one 25 years. But really what we're doing is evaluating the end product. When we get a proposal, we look at the images. We don't ask, how long did it take you to come up with this photo, right? And what was your thought process? And how long have you been drawing? And it's none of that. It's the final product. It's like evaluating student work. Is your paper an A or is it a D? No one cares that you spent 15 hours or 2 minutes, right? Or you wrote it overnight. So I think AI, number one, it's a tool. Number two, I think it's really useful and we should encourage where some people are weak, but I think you can create a policy that says we don't want anything that's creative, the end product to be generated by AI, the visual imagery or whatever it is, but use it for your proposal. Because I think to shy away from it makes us look like sort of Neanderthals, right? We're not going to use a computer because who knows who's listening on the other end, right? But I think again, just on a general level, that this conversation is beyond us. I think it has to be, you know, citywide, and then every department or commission uses it, tweaks it so that everybody's in agreement about how it can be used. I do like the disclosure. I think, you know, embrace it, say, yeah, you did it. And like, that's fair.
But then we also have to be clear about whether or not they're penalized for that.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is if somebody says, for example, I have a colleague who is not a native English speaker. And they actually use AI every day, all day, to remove language that would create implicit bias in their day-to-day communications with external vendors. And so they're actually using it to make sure that people can't tell where they're from. And so, you know, there's something pretty important that person's doing. I mean, I think we have a little bit of a loss to not have those emails, because it's fun to read someone who has a creative approach to English.
Yeah.
But it's sanitized. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that it isn't really helpful to that individual in their career. And so, again, I think that we run the risk of creating rules that we don't have answers to what the ramifications are without a deeper discussion at a broader level.
Vice Mayor Sweet, do you mind trying to?
Yeah, let's try again.
Okay, can you hear me?
No.
Good. So this is a great discussion and I'm so glad I'm on the call. We are having these discussions throughout city, and it kind of came up, and I hate to bring up this other topic of flock cameras, but I bring it up because during the council meeting, I said, you know, we need an overarching city policy on privacy, AI. This all kind of comes into play with one another. And I have a meeting with CJ Perry on Thursday, and I would love to bring this up to him that we had this discussion. It definitely is it is a policy decision. I believe it, you know, legal needs to get involved, but at the higher level, we are starting to do exactly what a lot of you mentioned. coming up with what is that overarching policy for the city, and then how do we bring that down to the different divisions and commissions and departments, and how do we want to work with it? I don't know the best way to communicate further down the road, but I will say I have a very important meeting on Thursday, and I'm actually doing an interview on Friday on creating that overarching policy. So it's definitely coming to our city organization. I wanted to let you know that, and however I can help to further this conversation at a later time. I do feel like even on the dais when I was voting on Flock, I didn't have, quite the enough information to tackle this in its totality. So I hear you when you say like we're just not there yet. I kind of agree, but I think having this discussion and knowing that it's coming from the higher ups at the city might help bring it back. Let me know if you have any questions.
Miranda, I would be really interested to know what national and international, like, arts policies people are looking at. As people are researching these things, that's something it's being discussed in Sotheby's, I'm sure. It's being discussed in museums around the world. It's being discussed in galleries and at Art Basel. And it's probably being discussed in every theater.
Right.
So, those would all be asked about.
And I agree, and I wouldn't shy away from if you come across an article or learn what some other organizations are doing, is just to start collecting your own information. I mean, that's what I've started doing on like the higher policy level. But when I talk to CJ, if you all are okay with it, I would love to just bring this up so that he's aware. He's helping the city with kind of creating that overarching policy, and it would be good for him to know that we had this conversation, if you're okay with me relaying that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. That's a great idea.
Something that I just thought of too, I mean, if you think back to film, right? And even as far back as Jaws with the robot shark, I mean, we've been using CGI and green screens and computer, and like all of that is not real, right? And we seem to have embraced it, and it's a part of our movie making. And so I think this is where we are, and I think we do need language so that we can set up expectations. But I think saying, we don't like strictly no AI, I think is just short-sighted and not. And we've all read grant applications, right? I mean, I've been on so many committees where we say, well, this is just not a good grant application. When I was on the grant committee, when it was, before it was created Flagstaff, I forget what it was called then. But we had all these discussions about such poorly written grant applications, and the committee regularly talked about, well, are there any workshops? Are there any help? Can we get, and here we have it. And, we're having conversations about, well, should we use it? I mean, you know what I mean? I think we do need something, but I think we should be thoughtful about embracing a tool, even though it's horrible for the internet, right? I mean, for the planet in terms of the energy usage and water.
Commissioner
I've got
Vice Chair Rulon.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Rulon, again. Sorry, I'm just relaxed and looking across the table at somebody I enjoy hanging out with, so.
It's okay. I love you too, Chair McCoy. First off, it seems like we're having two different conversations, which is AI in the grant writing process versus AI in artwork, which I think are two very, very different questions that do overlap.
Yeah.
But also, just another thing to keep in mind regarding implicit bias. When I was, and I will say, I am probably the biggest AI Luddite at this table. I do not intentionally use it. Unfortunately, any Google search automatically gives you AI results. But when I was watching the video, I was thinking, if someone hadn't told me that this was AI, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. And so that does give me pause about disclosure. On the one hand, I do believe in transparency. On the other hand, and we see this with some of the controversies that are coming up. People think that it's AI and automatically it's slump. So
An interesting resource, Vice Mayor Sweet, that I just thought of because of Commissioner Cruz's mention of the movie industry. AI is literally one of the primary topics of the recent strikes.
yeah,
And there was a lot of policy making and a lot of conversation around AI's place in artistic and creative endeavors when it comes to creators and actors and artists. And there's probably some pretty significant policy written in there that would be a good place to do some research.
And one last thing, I think, is that if you create language around AI, then you need to be able to have some sort of mechanism for verifying whether it is or is not AI. Because once you challenge someone and accuse someone of using AI when they haven't disclosed that they did, then it's a whole other thing, right? You know, I actually just had a student who wrote a paper, and we have an AI checker and it said 100%. So I just asked her, I said, can we have a conversation? Like, this came up, I did a print screen, this came up. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I want to just, you know, meet and chat. And she wrote, and she said, oh, I'm sorry. She said, I was sick. I was nervous about the deadline. I had AI write the paper. And I said, okay. I said, well, thanks for your integrity. You know, please rewrite it. But I think even all the tools we have at NAU, everybody says, well, they can't be trusted. There are false positives. There are false negatives. So if you create a policy, you have to be able to verify that a submission, whether it's the creative portion or the proposal submission, you have to somehow have a mechanism for actually determining that, right?
And what if the paper is about an idea and it doesn't really matter who crafted the words? Like if it's a theory or it's a concept that this student has developed. And so they feed the bullet points into AI and they say, craft this into a coherent set of paragraphs that describes this theory that I've developed. And here's how the theory works. And then AI puts it into 4 paragraphs and says, here are your bullet points in paragraph form. But the theory and the concept and the thing that was developed is still developed by the student. And so that's the area that I get really concerned about is that.
I think that's a pretty good analogy, honestly. I
Yeah.
think that's, you know, I definitely tend to, you know, because of my background in humanities, think about the humanity aspect of it. I think
For sure.
as a member of BPAC, I've seen this commission make some really amazing strides and put great amounts of effort into supporting our local artist community. And so it does concern me, the well-being of artists who have made this their career, and they depend on things like this for their livelihood. I do think that both the humanist aspect and the environmental impact aspect should not be dismissed from the conversation. I think those are really important parts of the conversation. You know, I think this question is coming for everyone, right? I mean, in my day-to-day job, I'm an instructional designer. I can tell you that it's the same thing with teachers. You can ask an AI to generate a syllabus, to generate lesson plans, to generate videos. The day is coming where teachers will also be replaced by AI, but when it starts to come home to you personally, then you start to feel the human impact of it. And we can say, you know, the end product is what we're looking at, but the process to get there involved real people with real lives and real impacts. And, you know, I think that needs to be.
Vice Mayor Rulon.
Vice Chair.
Chair.
I'm not.
Vice Chair. Oh my God, I thought I was so proud of myself. Vice Chair Rulon.
I adore you.
Yes, I am so sorry. It's always at the end of it.
Oh, it's finals week. My brain is mush. But, so I want to say this before I forget. This was actually one of the big things that came up in the discussions in the, strike was
Mhm.
the right not only to one's intellectual property, but to one's image and voice.
Mhm. Yes.
And that is absolutely something that we need, because if you lose the right to control your own image and voice, that opens up some very scary things.
And many people already have.
Oh, yeah, well, it goes all the way back to Back to the Future too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we did have, some thoughts from Claire. She reviewed the presentation and wanted to share those. Do you want to read it? Would you like me to read those?
Go ahead and read it, since
Okay.
you're good on your machine.
No problem. All right, so from Claire, she has three different parts. One, AI is currently being integrated into, I'm gonna do this so you guys can read along.
Chair, thank you. It's this is why I think that we're not ready yet, is
No.
because there are so many branches to this.
Yeah.
Places that it's gonna affect, that like, I think we're at risk of creating some very narrow rules
Mhm.
and then not really understanding the ramifications. And it's actually really funny that we brought up the Y2K thing, because I have a very close acquaintance that worked very, very hard on Y2K compliance for the phone companies for 3 years.
These are the GPS cover sheets, right?
Oh, no, they were right, but I mean, she traveled around the country working on software systems to make sure that they were updated and that they weren't weird and some other things. And so it was a non-issue, but there were also thousands of people working on the problem.
Yeah.
To make sure it wasn't a problem. And so, it didn't impact people very much.
No.
But I think partly because we made sure that it didn't impact people very much.
All right, so Claire says, 1, AI is currently being integrated into most industry standard creative softwares such as Adobe Creative Suite, Autodesk Computer Aided Design, and 3D modeling product. These can be used to make work more efficient or generate artwork. The rapid spread of AI integration should be factored in as it has developed deep roots quickly. 2, security and protection of the Flagstaff artist community's intellectual property. My company has been vetting the safety of various AI softwares and the security of our and our clients' intellectual property. Currently, only 2 AI companies with a paid pro license have been deemed safe, and we are using those for writing and written content generation. And we have strict rules on what information can be released in AI prompts. As we are already seeing, AI policies and ethics are at the discretion of the company and can change over time. And her third item that she wanted to talk about is copyright and intellectual property discussion. Is the use transformative or derivative? Is it appropriate to ask all artists to disclose their process, regardless if it includes AI or not? This has a precedent in my mind, as some art drawing calls require that artworks are not based on photographs. This could be challenging if the process is proprietary in some way.
Very thoughts.
And another thing to keep in mind, as Commissioner Cruz mentioned, AI is a tool, and a lot of the tools that have been developed over the years, particularly technological tools,
Mhm.
have actually really helped artists with disabilities.
Yeah, that's a great
And,
point.
and my first thought was, I can't think of an ethical use of AI in art. But then I remembered an episode of the original US Queer as Folk, where one of the characters was an artist who had an injury that made it difficult for him to hold a pen. And he started using computer software to do his drawing. And we could be inadvertently discriminating against people with disabilities.
That's exactly the kind of thing that I would be really worried that something created at this level
Yeah.
might do.
Yeah,
I really like that question that Claire posed, is it transformative or derivative? That really hits the nail on the head for me of some of the struggles. And that's why I think, even though I don't feel in any way qualified or, ready to make some kind of policy, I do think it's important to talk about it. And I think at some point you have to start the conversation, even if you're not 100% sure. So I do appreciate you bringing the questions, Corey. I think they're really good questions, and it's something that I'm going to think about a lot. Like, not just for today's meeting, but just in general.
Yeah, I agree that it's great to talk about. It's,
Yeah.
it's just, I just don't know if we're really.
I think you asked the question, should they just close? And I mean, just to be 100% honest, like the way I feel right now is that they should.
I
I
think,
feel that, but I'm nervous about it.
yeah, I think that AI is impacting everyone, right? And so we can wait and see what other groups create in terms of policies and then, do something similar. Or we can create our own, knowing that it's a living, breathing document, as they say in social work. And that it will all change based on whatever, right? And so there's no harm in creating something now. Or, we, the city, the commission can wait and see what other folks do. I think either way, AI is here and it's not going away. And so it's just a matter of thinking critically with regard to what relationship you want with it and the art and the artist.
My question about disclosure, and the cautionary thing that I would put out there is if we don't have a policy about whether or not disclosure creates a penalty,
Mhm.
then you're gonna have people on committees to see AI in somebody's disclosure. And they may not understand how they use the AI. And if it's something that needs to be discriminated against, but the artist may be scored lower.
But that could just be for staff. Like they could just disclose that to staff because staff doesn't vote. And then commission can discuss, vote, and then
But that's my question is
Yeah.
you start to get down into these things
the
like,
weeds.
if somebody has to disclose, like, I'm an English as a second language user and I used AI to write my entire application. Does that mean that they deserve to be discriminated against because their application was not authentic to them?
It doesn't, but if you think about, for example, they're applying to a graduate program, when they get to that program, they're really gonna struggle if they don't have the English
They may.
level.
So we have to ask what that,
Like,
what is
they
the
can't
purpose
sit
of
in
the
the class and
disclosure?
listen to an English lecture, a lecture in English and understand everything that the
Right.
professor is saying, then
But if it's a sculptor producing a piece of art, does it matter? I mean, it may, because there may be no community engagement. Or there may be some other things, but that's why I'm saying, I feel like this is, as Michael said at the very beginning, a lot of weeds.
Yeah, there are known knowns and unknown unknowns and
Mhm.
all that. But I do think that if nothing else, for optics, we should probably start having public conversations sooner rather than later.
I don't think that that's with this commission. I think that that is a broader citywide conversation. We do not have the
Well,
capacity as. a
I was
commission.
using we
Okay.
in a more broad sense.
Yeah,
the Flagstaff we.
The Flagstaff we, yeah.
Sure.
It needs to start.
I mean,
soon.
if we wanted to have an AI like arts conversation, I think that that behooves the creation of, I think there's actually a legal definition of a committee.
Mhm.
Which is a kind of a subgroup of a commission, because isn't the bicycle committee? That's a subgroup of the transportation commission.
Yes.
Yeah, and then though they have a specific topic and they have specific pursuits, and then they have the time and the space to do the research and be experts in a very specific area. Whereas, I don't know that our commission has the time and the space to do it properly without that committee. And it would be a really interesting committee. I think it'd be fascinating.
I think it also needs to be aligned with what the city decides, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the city drafts so much in terms of legislation, in terms of policy, in terms of meeting agendas. So the city, I think, needs to say, these groups can use AI and this is how, because, you know, if we, and we can certainly create something, but it would be sort of overshadowed by what the city decides once they decide to do it. But I do think it's really useful to your point about grad school applications. I'm helping a student get into a program at NAU. And we met for coffee and I just quickly said, can you create a candidate statement for me to apply to this MSW program? And it generated this whole thing in like 2 seconds while we were having coffee. And I said, have you used it? She said, no, I'm afraid of it. I don't want to get it. And I said, yeah, I get it. Like, don't use it for schoolwork. I said, but it can provide you with an idea and a framework. So she created her profile, 5 to 6 pages with no subheadings. And I said the AI generated one had subheadings that were relevant to each of the prompts in the statement. I said, and I like that format. I said subheadings I think help keep a reader and a writer both on track. And she struggled and I like tried to sort of help her think, you're just using the format. You're not having it write the statement for you. You've written it. So I think AI is here. It's horrible for the environment, as I said. I do want to acknowledge that, but I think it's really a nice resource to use when you use it. I mean,
We have a comment from Commissioner Curley. She said there are some great resources for us to consider when the time comes, like the National Art Education Association position statement on the use of AI.
Yeah.
And I did ask Vice Mayor Sweet because I believe that there is a subcommittee being formed for technology.
There is.
You-
There
That's,
is.
that's exactly the,
Yeah,
so,
Yeah.
you know, there may need to be an arts commission representative on that committee, like somebody to talk about it from a creative standpoint, a public art standpoint. That might be valuable.
So I kind of feel like I'm not sure if staff or who wants to reach out, but it our police department is the one putting the committee together, and I'm not sure where CJ Perry is involved in that, but like I said, this week I'm meeting with our police chief Thursday, and I'm also meeting with CJ Perry to kind of get myself ready for this interview I'm doing on Friday about this kind of very subject. So I can pass that along to them, but maybe someone from the commission can follow up with our police chief and CJ and see the best path forward.
I'm rotating off, so I can't.
I was gonna say, and I'm not entirely sure if that's appropriate for I mean, is that something that a commissioner should do? And because that seems
Yeah,
like it
and
might be
I'm
more
not-
of a staff.
yeah, and I'm not sure. Maybe someone can communicate with me early next week and I can kind of find out the best way forward. Because I'm not sure, but if we want someone from BPAC on this subcommittee, then someone from BPAC should apply to be on the subcommittee.
Okay, maybe
And that's
let
on
us
the-
know could you let us know what that process is?
Yeah, it is on, I will, I'll forward it. I believe it's on our website, the
Thank
city
you.
website. Yeah.
Yes, Mayor. Interesting stuff. Does anybody else have anything else they want to contribute on this? I feel like we could talk about this for like 12 hours,
yeah.
not solve it.
Oh, I don't think we ever will.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. With that, Corey, did you have anything else you
That's
wanted
it.
to do? Thank you. Sure. It's a valuable conversation, I think. Interesting. Okay. And then we'll move on to item I. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Hearing no requests, we'll move on to item J, time and day for upcoming meetings. We will see you guys after the holidays, Monday, January 9th, 2026 at 4:00 p.m. Meredith, you too. And
Yep, I'll be there. I'll be in person that day.
Good, we miss you here.
I'm
And
in Salt
then
Lake. The mountains
Oh,
are
fun.
beautiful with all the snow.
there's great public art up there. Take a tour.
There is, it's lovely.
And then we'll move on to item K. We are adjourned. Fastest BPAC meeting in the West.
Cheers.
Have you double checked my
Is it
white
stuff like that all the
pockets, but